Okay guys, I'm not kidding when I tell you that this build is lethal AF. Like, just look at the power we have for this new Titan build. We are becoming a Titan with one powerful melee ability that's infinite, gives us a ton of buffs and applies debuffs, and heals us every time, which means we're stupidly powerful. What's actually great about this build isn't the fact that we're getting infinite melees with constant Radiant, Amplified, Bolt Charge, and Devour buffs, which already on its own is kind of insane, but it's the fact that a single melee attack causes enemies to be jolted, chains lightning, and blinds surrounding enemies who didn't die. Not to mention that we can suspend them at any time too, which is just kind of funny. And this is good because those enemies that are blinded or suspended are just going to sit there for a second waiting for your next punch to get the final blow. In fact, that punch is so powerful that it insta-kills Yellow Bar Knights in ultimate difficulty. And for reference, this is how long it takes for a heavy machine gun to kill them. Or a heavy linear fusion rifle. Or even a heavy sword. Literally just charge up and use your melee to insta-kill everything in your path, or cause some serious damage. And that wasn't including us being transcendent either, or taking advantage of many other benefits of the build, so it only gets stronger the more you're chaining and building up kills and DPS stacks. It's honestly one really strong unique Titan build that makes the Titan's Thunderclap ability feel more alive now than ever. Okay guys, just a quick one before we continue. I want to thank today's sponsor, Eneba. If you're buying games, DLCs, gift cards, or even just in-game currency anyway for any of your favourite platforms, whether that's Xbox, PlayStation or Steam and such, it's definitely worth checking them out first, because you can find really good deals compared to paying the full price. I've actually been browsing their Destiny offers, and they have expansions like the Final Shape for under $2, literally the best expansion in the game for under $2, and you're even getting cash back from the majority of your purchases as well, so you're saving yourself a lot of money buying from Eneba. I know a lot of you guys watching my guides are fairly new to Destiny, and might not be up to date with all the content, so it's definitely worth checking out if you're looking to buy expansions for Destiny 2. They don't just cover Destiny either though, they've got over 40,000 digital products, including games for all platforms, new games coming out like GTA 6, so you can pre-order that at a discount, as well as gift cards, software and loads more. So chances are whatever you're looking for, it's most likely on there. The checkout process is really straightforward as well. You receive your digital code quickly after purchase, and if you ever need help, they got 24/7 live customer support. So if you want to save money on your next game or digital product, click the link down in the description or scan my QR code here on screen to check out Eneba and support the channel at the same time. Big thanks again to Eneba for sponsoring today's video. And now with that said, let's dive right back into the build. Okay, now getting back into the video, I will mention that the full playlist of new and updated builds for the Monument of Triumph final update is linked down below, so check that out later as you might just find your new best build in there. But with this one today, we are reworking the classic Titan melee build that we had years ago and redesigning it to work in its best possible state with the sandbox we currently have. And it's actually even better now than before, since we can use buffs and debuffs from other subclass elements, as before we couldn't do that and it was restricted. So back then we were just mostly using Arc, and that was it. But now we can have Radiant from Solar and Devour from Void on top of everything else, so that we can really maximize our damage and survivability at the same time. Now how this build works is you would start by using your melee ability to kill an enemy to get Bolt Charge. You'll also get Knockout and Radiant while spawning an orb. You'll then just repeat the process, it's that basic. Enemies nearby that aren't dead will be blinded, and as you just keep killing enemies, you'll be maintaining all your buffs and generating a ton of orbs. You'll not only be getting Devour and Overshields as well as health, but you'll be getting your super back faster, especially if you're killing yellow bar enemies. When it comes to more difficult enemies, if you want to guarantee the kill, then you will want to charge up the ability before using it for more damage to actually get the kill. And it is basically the same process, except you're holding slightly before releasing for that extra damage. If you don't kill them, you will get most of the melee energy back as long as you hit them at least, but to help recharge it faster, just go about your day tossing grenades, killing enemies, suspending them, and just cause chaos with everything else that we have with the build, and you'll get it back pretty quick. The one thing I want to point out though is that this build works really well with all sorts of weapons, that be weapons that weaken or cause volatile, weapons that jolt or blind, and basically just anything, because all those debuffs are triggering other buffs in our build, even if we're not killing them with the melee. Now getting into the setup of this build, we are using the Prismatic Titan subclass. I was considering going with Arc, but the Prismatic offers way more, due to the artifact perks that we have. so we will be using a Prismatic today. And you will want to use the Void Super with this build. That's only if you want to benefit from other parts of the build, which I'll get to later. But if you don't want to use it, then you can use any of your choosing, but trust me, it will be worth it, so just stick with the Void Super. Purely because of what the Overshield is going to do for us later, when it starts a whole new loop of buffs and debuffs. But for our abilities, we have the Thruster, the Thunderclap, and the Shackle Grenade, all of which are ideally required because the first aspect is Drengr's Lash. And what this does is cause a suspending explosion when we use our thruster and grants us energy to the ability when we use it near enemies, so it's just a great way to hold enemies in place by just simply suspending them. The second aspect though is knockout, so critically wounding a target or breaking a shield infuses your melee attack with arc energy and increases the melee range and damage for a short time. Defeating enemies with the melee attack makes us amplified and restores health. So this is just so that we can easily kill more difficult enemies and also get health back so that we don't die all the time when trying to kill them. For fragments, we have Facet of Hope, so while we have an elemental buff, our class ability regenerates more quickly. Those buffs will be amplified, Bolt Charge, Radiant, Devour and Overshield, all of which will be at some point active at any given time, so this fragment will likely always be triggered non-stop. But the second fragment here is Facet of Protection, so while surrounded we are more resistant to incoming damage. Then Facet of Dawn, so powered melee hits against targets makes you Radiant. So that's how we get the infinite radiant for more damage from our weapons. But we also have Facet of Purpose, so picking up an orb of power gives us an overshield based on our super being void. And lastly, Facet of Courage, so our arc ability deals more damage to enemies affected by a darkness debuff, that being the suspend whenever we suspend enemies. Just make sure that your melee stat is as high as you can get it, ideally around 180 to 200 for that extra damage, otherwise you might struggle a bit with more difficult adds. Your stat priority should be melee first, then weapons, at least that's what I would go with, but you ideally can just go with a balanced approach or whatever you prefer, just make sure the melee is at least as high as possible. For your exotic, I went with the Skullfort, since final blows with arc melees trigger health regen, but more importantly restores the melee charge with hits granting arc melee energy, so this just helps to always have the melee ability infinitely, or at the very least more often if we don't get a final blow with it. I also want to point out that the weapon I am using is the Prismatic Blade, since when we're not using the melee, we'll instead use this sword, and it will weaken enemies with the impact core, so that also helps benefit the build in other ways too. As for the artifact, this is where things get a bit interesting. I went with the encrypted data disk. I did try other ones, but this seemed to be the best for what we're going with, since the first perk here is Tazer Tag, so arc powered melee hits, jolt combatants and deal further damage for a short duration. And then I've got this one, so defeating arc debuff targets grants Bolt Charge and rapidly defeating them spawns an orb and heals us. It's just more health and easy Bolt Charge, since everything is going to be jolted and blinded anyway. But we also have Armorsmith, so breaking a shield grants damage resistance and more melee damage. Then Singularity Blade, so while we have a void elemental buff, our melee will weaken targets and create a weakening burst on final blows. So that's why having a void super is essential for that. But using the next one, blinding jolts, final blows on jolted combatants blind nearby targets. Again, everything is going to be jolted anyway, so why not blind them too, right? But the last two are Power from Pain, so rapid final blows against weakened combatants grant Devour. So by having that Void Super, we'll get an Overshield from an orb, which will always apply weakening, which will then apply Devour. And then because we have Devour, we'll repeat that loop, so it's just such a good loop to have by having a Void Super equipped to start that loop. The last one though is this one, just to stun Unstoppables with swords, but you can use any other perk you want, so you don't really need this. Lastly for mods, this is very important as well. You just want to have mods that will generate more super energy, spawn orbs of power or help get your abilities back faster, like your thruster. And if you can maintain all those buffs and debuffs using this build, then you will have an infinite melee ability that will cause never ending effects, jolting and blinding everything, and keeping you alive at the same time. It's such a strong build for all types of content, especially for solo players. But guys, that there is your latest up-to-date Titan Prismatic melee build using the Skullfort for infinite melee abilities as a Thunderclap build in Destiny 2 that you can use right now for the rest of Destiny 2's days in the Monument of Triumph update. If you like this build, you might like some of my other builds, all of which you can find in the playlist down below. For now, give this one a try, let me know what you think of it. And also don't forget to check out Eneba using my link below or QR so that you guys can grab some cheaper games at the best possible prices. Take care guys.